Hello.
Hoy and Avast me hearties. Nice to be back on the show, Mildra.
Yar.
Arr.
So wait, what are they doing? But have they heard the prodigal mage? Okay.
Yep. Had a look at the
So you
Kickstarter.
did.
Saw the various inspirations. Looks interesting.
Mhm, mhm.
Oh, I missed out on all the fun. It seems.
What?
Problem. It did. OBS did the defaulting thing again, so let me fix that. Okay, hopefully we're not both muted now. This is the Valley of the Judge. I am your one and only gaming monk, better known as Mildred. We are at our final episode of our look at Phantasy Star tabletop role playing. Oh,
Wait, so who did it catch? Did it catch nobody?
Okay.
it's a
There's
case
there's
of.
three of us too. Also, so
Mhm.
there's yeah.
I think what happened. This happens sometimes where you load up OBS and your audio input capture goes to default, but it doesn't know what is default. Oh.
Okay, it got me. I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Yay.
Yeah,
That
sorry.
makes me cry.
Technology, it likes to give us the middle finger. But we'll be covering the rules for vehicles, starships, the GM tools, and then giving our final thoughts on Phantasy Star role playing. Obviously, last week we went into equipment and techniques and had a few moments of blood pressure rising over some of the questionable decisions, which we'll go into. Out says, "This is why I say my prayers to the Omnissiah before I go live." I do too, but you know how capricious that can be. So,
Glory be to the Omnisire.
also praise be to Space King. Anyway,
Prince of Space, anybody?
so we'll start out with vehicles and starships. Obviously, we're not doing, as I mentioned before when we were still muted, we're not doing monsters because there's not a whole lot to dissect mechanically. If you've seen how a monster stat block looks like in a D20 game, you know how this works. I still hate challenge rating, but that's not changing anytime soon.
Yeah. Yes.
But so we start with beast mounts. You know, if it's a willing creature that's one size larger than you and has appropriate anatomy, it can be a mount. Though getting onto a creature to mount costs movement equal to half your speed. If this moves your mount against its will while you're on it, you must succeed at a DC 10 dexterity save or fall off the mount, landing prone within 5 feet of it. If you're knocked prone while mounted, you must make the same saving throw. If your mount is knocked prone, you can use your reaction to dismount as it falls and land on your feet. Otherwise, you're dismounted and fall prone within a space within 5 feet. If you have proficiency in vehicles' beast mounts, you can use the survival skill to make any checks required to perform risky maneuvers such as jumps and quick turns. Now, while you're mounted, you have 2 options. You can either direct it, which gives you the dash, disengage, and dodge actions. The mount could be independent, in which case it's controlled by the GM. And if it provokes an opportunity attack while you're on it, the attacker can target you or the mount.
Okay.
And we have planetary vehicles, which have the stats of size, occupancy, base defense, hit points, control speed, saves, and stations. So size, self-explanatory. Occupancy, how many butts you can put in seats. Base defense is added to the operator's dex mod to determine the vehicle's defense. HP, self-explanatory. Control speed, the speed required for you to turn and perform combat actions from the vehicle. A normal speed is approximately 8 to 10 times this number. Saves, so saving throws. Stations, the number and type of stations the vehicle has. And then we have getting in and out, which works the same way. Then cover and vision. You gain cover depending on whether your vehicle is enclosed. So a bike would grant no cover, while a convertible car would grant half or 3/4 cover. A fully enclosed vehicle, such as a Land Rover, would grant total cover, but targets outside of the vehicle would also have total cover from you. And when it comes to vehicle stations, we have a operator station. So this is what controls the movement, lets you accelerate, avoid, or control the vehicle. A weapon station lets you aim and attack. The attack power for a vehicle is your dex mod plus your attack bonus if proficient. Which, if it's the vehicle's weapons, it seems a bit odd that you'd be adding your dex mod.
Right? Like, unless Dex is, like, how you dictate your aim? I guess? But
Like,
wouldn't that be
are
more
we-
pers-
Okay. I was just thinking, is it meant to be like, the gunner stations on the Millennium Falcon or something, where you can kind of swivel them around and aim? Okay, never mind.
And utility stations, which is going to vary from different stat blocks. So you also have passengers, and passengers can do attacks. Actually, no, they can't. If you're inside an enclosed vehicle, you cannot attack targets outside of the vehicle. If you're not in an enclosed vehicle, you have disadvantage on attack rolls made against targets outside the vehicle. I feel like that kind of thing should be canceled out if you have the equivalent of a writing skill. I.e., for most people, they'd have a hard time doing that, but somebody who is a bit more trained in using vehicles probably knows how to shoot on the run.
Yeah.
At least one hopes.
Hmm.
And we do have those proficiencies in these things, so
Yeah, especially since, as we noticed earlier, this game really wants people to utilize and take advantage um, of of investing skill points in a wide variety of skills instead of hyper focusing on just one.
yeah.
And just to make sure I'm not talking out of my ass, let me check the skill list for Fantasy Star just by looking at one of the sheets. You can ascertain a lot about a TTRPG from its character sheet, a lot more than people think. So let me see. There isn't a ride skill, but from what it sounds like earlier, with the use of the survival skills, you could have that as an equivalent.
Mm-hmm.
Um, or mechanics. In fact, if you're dealing with landborne vehicles, mechanics would probably be the best option there.
Hmm.
Maybe computers. I'd say computers should be better used for space vehicles. The point is,
Hmm.
I don't see a reason why dexterity has to be the attack stat for when you're firing vehicle weapons.
Yeah.
Especially since dexterity has a problem of being a god stat.
Just a bit.
Mhm.
I've never liked how Dex is often used with ranged weapons. Doesn't really make sense. You don't aim better because you are, you know, good at, you know, chopping onions really fast or something. I don't know. It doesn't make any sense.
I can dodge, so obviously I know how to fire a rifle from a vehicle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh.
The the issue the reason I call dexterity a god stat is how many things cascade into it.
Just off the top of my head, acrobatics, stealth, thievery, anything involving physical manipulation of any kind, anything requiring dodging, like your armor class.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Whereas other attributes are lucky to get a few things that do much when you
Can I
invest in
have for
them.
you, sir? Can I have it for use for Constitution aside from my health, please? Thank you very much.
Mhm.
Or strength for that matter, aside from athletics.
And physical like melee attacks.
Mhm.
Woo.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh, but vehicles are immune to necrotic, poison, psychic, and spirit damage, as well as all conditions except invisible and prone. When it's reduced to 0 HP, it crashes. At which point you must take a reaction. What if you don't have a reaction? And succeed on a DC 10 Dex save, or lose control of your vehicle until the end of your next turn. You automatically lose control if you're incapacitated, or leave the operator's station. During a turn in which you've lost control, the vehicle moves a distance equal to its control speed in the same direction as it did before the end of your last turn. If it hits an obstacle big enough to reasonably damage it, it crashes.
Then everyone has to get out and push.
Mm-hmm.
When a crash occurs, uh, it takes crash damage, which is physical damage equal to 1d6 for every 10 feet it moves since its operator's last turn, maximum of 20. Whether the vehicle struck while crashing also takes Whatever the vehicle struck while crashing also takes the same amount of damage. Creatures inside the vehicle must make a DC 15 strength save, taking the same damage dealt to the vehicle on a failed save, or half as much on a successful one.
Can I get my vehicle damage reduction?
I'm not seeing anything like that. There might be some
Can I deploy some kind of like magic airbag?
Yeah. If it enters the space of a creature, the creature can take a reaction to dodge by making a DC 10 dexterity saving throw. On a failed save, the creature takes physical damage equal to 1d6 for every 10 feet the vehicle moves since last turn, maximum 20. If the creature is one or more size categories bigger than the vehicle and its occupants take crash damage. When a vehicle with no flying speed falls, or a flying vehicle is reduced to 0 hit points, the vehicle and its occupants take damage from falling as defined in Chapter 1. And then we have the various stats of different planetary vehicles.
The important question is, do they have vehicle insurance in Phantasy Star?
In the grim darkness of the far future, there was only out of pocket.
Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
But I don't know why, but I was hoping for more than 4 vehicles.
We didn't even get any animals.
Yeah, like
I'm guessing because the animals, quote unquote, would be in the monsters section.
Oh yeah, probably so.
Let me just take a quick look back to see if they actually covered such things.
Get our space horses or tauntaun equivalents in there.
Let's see.
And I know it says bikes are primarily used as short-range transport. I call shenanigans on that. Unless they're talking about a good old-fashioned pedal bike, but...
Okay, but anytime I'm on any vehicle in any RPG, I blame Final Fantasy VII because I keep on hearing the theme that plays whenever you're doing the mini game with the motorcycle.
Yep.
They do not have any rideable or mount creatures listed in the monster side of things from the looks of it. Unless you want to count a centaur, at which point that's kind of awkward.
Come on, man. We need our tauntaun. We need our thing that smells better on the outside.
Did they have any kind of horses like that in Phantasy Star? I can't remember.
Not that I recall. I could be wrong. And I think they're going on the idea of if it's a monster that's one size category larger than you. And I will note that the monster section does have creature creation, but it is kind of basic. Just the core stats like defense, HP, attack, damage per round, how many attacks, damage per attack. But I might be a little bit biased because of the very robust NPC creation system that I made. But
not to toot your own horn or anything.
Yeah. And well, hell, Draw Steel has a better monster creation system.
Fair enough.
As if I can't toot my own horn. But
I like how the standard car, your standard, I guess it's more of a van because it can seat 6, but it has, you're just tooling around the suburbs in this car, and you've got, blowing away all the other cars in the road with your mini cannon. Love that. I suppose it's a variant. You don't have to have it there, but it would be nice if it came standard.
Just a bit.
Well, I believe there was one car in in BattleTech that you could could put a mech scale small laser on. Of course, on the other hand, if you have access to a small laser, why aren't you putting that on a scout mech?
And why would you? I mean, I know BattleTech has its clans and whatnot, but if you have the option of a mech or a car, what are you going to drive everywhere?
I'm gonna drive the mech.
Yeah.
Because even a shit mech is 100% better than no mech.
Yes. Yes. You have a heart after my own, sir.
Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah, the Charger the Charger compared to what you could get at the time is awful until people realized, hey, we can throw hands, and this is a fast heavy mech that can throw hands. with even if it has just a handheld small laser, but on the other hand, you have the Murder Muffin. Also,
Not the murder muffin.
sorry, I have to correct myself. The Murder Mitten,
Okay, that works a lot better.
Although a Murder Muffin wouldn't be a terrible idea. That'd basically be an average evening in the Roman Empire. But then we get to starships and we get to space travel. Obviously, operating under a different scale. How big that scale is up to you. But travel speeds are intercept speed, standard speed, and FTL speed.
Not ludicrous speed? Darn.
So intercept speed is measured in units. Each unit is akin to 50 feet. Standard speed is astronomical units. One astronomical unit is approximately 93 million miles. And FTL is measured in parsecs and kiloparsecs. 1 parsec is equivalent to roughly 210,000 astronomical units. So let's break out the dreaded M word, math, and let's see how many miles a parsec is. So let's see. So a astronomical unit is 93 million miles. We'll multiply that by 210,000. So a parsec is 19,530,000,000,000,000 miles.
Ugh, math.
And if we go with kiloparsecs, so multiply that by 1,000. We have a number too long for my calculator, so it just uses e plus 16.
Yeah.
Oh. Which is kind of like having your calculator divide by 0 and then being surprised when it says, fuck you. But
I just Googled it. But yeah, we got the same thing, so.
So we do have a variant rule about starships on a grid. Although, if I'm being honest, when it comes to that scale of combat, I don't think using a grid is a good idea.
Not even a hex grid.
Theater of the mind instead.
Yes, especially if you're trying to simulate the kind of space battles you would see in any space opera that you've seen in the last 50 years.
Well, time for everyone to boot Stellaris.
Yeah, it's very hard to do without, outside of a video game, honestly. And even then, it can be pretty confusing.
Mm-hmm. And I
know just the thing. Let's break out the Warhammer 40k models. And no.
We're not doing Battlefleet Gothic. At least not the tabletop version. I'll do the video game version any day of the week.
But I have the prayers to the Omnisaya all set and ready.
But so you can't, if you are proficient in vehicles space. Wait, we have a. Wait a minute. We have a vehicle skill.
Mm-hmm. We have a vehicle skill for vehicles land, vehicles space. I don't think
Why
there's
the
any
fuck
other
is that not in
vehicle.
the skill list on the character sheet?
Isn't it? No,
No.
it's a it's a tool proficiency. Just like it is in 5th edition.
Weird.
Hey guys, it's not an actual skill, it's a tool proficiency. You know, like crafting, musical instruments, gambling. Ah, yes. My person who does vehicles land can drive pretty much anything, but put him into a pilot seat and he's useless.
Imagine saying, "Oh, you can drive a helicopter, no problem, but you put them in a car and they end up crashing."
I mean, completely different control scheme, obviously.
True.
Completely different control scheme, but it's not like the instincts of spacing are going to be suddenly lost. You're not going to be better at it.
I mean, they don't have to deal with traffic when you're in a helicopter, I can tell you that much.
But I don't. Yeah, if you have proficiency, you can add your save bonus to checks when doing checks to control the ship, as well as your ship's piloting stats. When it comes to that sort of thing, I don't quite know why the skill or proficiency isn't used more than it is. Because I have a feeling we're going to run into the same problem we did with terrestrial vehicles. So, with Starship Combat, you have crew and crew member roles. You got the pilot, the gunner, the technician. So this is where you have your Scotty.
I just cannot do it, Captain.
Mm-hmm. The co-pilot, which if you do the co-pilot, it has a few different options. The ship's maneuver defense is calculated using the co-pilot's wisdom bonus instead of the pilot's. Why is wisdom used for defense?
Spatial awareness?
I guess.
I'm aware of space. It's right outside that hull.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
If the pilot or technician either chooses not to or are incapable of acting during the ship's turn, the co-pilot can immediately take over that character's assigned role. If not performing a maneuver, the co-pilot can use the help action to assist the pilot or technician with maneuver checks. And the co-pilot can make the ship's saving throws against the piloting maneuvers of enemy ships. So, surprised there isn't anything like the crew chief, but that might be me making jokes about the rules of etiquette when it comes to cargo helicopters. Basically, for those who don't know, there are three people of authority on a cargo helicopter: the pilot, the co-pilot, and the crew chief. You are never going to be talking to the pilot or the co-pilot. It's always the crew chief. And what he says about the helicopter goes. In one particular case, somebody tried mouthing off to him. He said, "Get the fuck off my helicopter," and then called every other crew chief on that flight block and told him, "Yeah, have this guy grounded. Don't have him going on any of your birds. Have him go on the next one, because if he's gonna mouth off to me, he's gonna mouth off to you." Basically, somebody thought that they could pull their acting rank on the crew chief, and it's like, do not confuse your rank with my experience.
Yeah, especially on something like a helicopter, which, not the most from what I knowledge about them, not the most safe of flying vehicles.
No. the reason the army uses helicopters so much is because the Air Force had to pitch a fit. Because they're like, anything that flies is anything that is a plane is ours. So like, all right, here's a helicopter. It's not a plane. But so initiative works the same way it does with terrestrial, D20 and adding agility. For the ship's turn, each crew member can perform one maneuver. The crew decides the order in which they do it. Certain maneuvers, weapons, or functions can be done as special actions. You do have reactions, and because of the way, if I'm being honest, I'm not a big fan of the whole one reaction per turn thing.
Mm-hmm.
Which is, why in Legend Edition I have it as one reaction per trigger. Because when you have reactions that limited, you end up with that too good to use problem.
I see what you mean. Yeah.
But I feel because of that, there's less incentive to take advantage of reactions when you only get one of them. I know some people will say, "But my game balance." I'm like, sometimes you have to put game balance to the side in order for actual fun to happen. I realize this is a alien concept to the more theory crafty people within the space, but at the end of the day, this is a game. This isn't some simulation. Now, if you want something that's more simulation-y, there's some of those bad games in the 90s I can point you to, like Phoenix Command. Or you feel like breaking out Kriegspiel anytime soon?
So tank game is what that means, I think. Oh wait, lightning game, or is it a tank game?
Kriegspiel was a war game that was for officer training in Poland in the 19th century. One of the things
Okay.
that led to the chain of events that led to war games as we know it. It, along with not the Strategio that we're familiar with, but the one that was made in the 1890s that was also an officer training thing. It used a spinning top instead of dice. Think of a dreidel, but with more sides.
Okay.
But let's see, you have sensors, which they can detect objects using the astrophysics check. And when it comes to crew maneuvers, you have different range for them, mostly the sensor range of the ship. You also have drive masking as an optional rule. Basically mask its drive signature with a mechanics check to prevent it from being detected. But then we have piloting checks, which is a pilot maneuver check, D20 plus your piloting bonus against a DC equal to the target ship's maneuver defense. And saving throws, which is against your maneuver save DC. So the pilot's maneuvers are attack run, braking maneuver, dogfight, and things like the dogfight fantasy i.e. the kind of thing you would see in Top Gun or Ace Combat. This is another reason why I feel like ship combat should be more theater of the mind. And then we have evasive action, fainted stunt, and full thrust. Gunner has attacking, which is exactly what it is on the tin. Cover fire, focused aim, target system, so the whole target their weapons thing. Uh, although if you fail the roll, the system that's affected is done randomly. Technician maneuvers, so we have things like power boost, jury rigging, pinpoint targeting, and shield boosting. Uh, Obviously, ships have hull points. And if you need to see the equivalent through hit points or hull points, it's a rule of 10. Then I think we have structural integrity. Basically, the stability of parts and integrated systems. When it loses structural integrity, its overall structure is damaged and can only be restored with a full repair. If it's at 0 structural integrity, then it's destroyed. You lose 1 SI when either your ship fails a system shock roll, your ship takes damage from a single attack that is equal or greater than half of its HLP maximum, so hull points, or your ship takes damage after being reduced to 0. When it loses SI, systems are impacted, which is determined by a d20 roll, as we can see. And if you take a critical hit after applying the additional damage, the ship takes a system shock roll. This is an intelligence save against the attacker's maneuver save DC. Then we have resistances and vulnerabilities. And repairing damage, which can be done on a patch repair, which takes 1 hour. And you can roll 2 hull dice from your ship's maximum. Oh, we're doing the hit dice thing here too. I understood.
Apparently, we are.
I'm not sure that kind of hit dice setup makes sense for ships.
I guess the idea is that you're pulling stuff off the hull to patch elsewhere. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't really work.
Yeah. So, a ship's stat setup, we have the base stats, their defense, hull points, and structural integrity before any crew modifiers. Speed. So this is measured in the different units. Maneuverability, the ability to dive, turn, and make quick evasive maneuvers. Defense mod, shields and countermeasures. Action stations, the number and type of crew stations available. Crew capacity, the number of butts and seats. Sensor range, the range of your tactical sensors, and weapon and defense systems for gunner maneuvers. And then how the ship's stats can be calculated, which it definitely gives the vibe of, instead of individuals having their own ship, the party is meant to have this one shared ship between them, which does fit into the fantasy.
Are you still there? I can't hear anybody.
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay, sorry. Okay.
I am also still here.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I thought that you were. It sounded like Mildred cut out quickly, so I was wondering what was going on. It does look like there's not a huge amount of ships here. So one thing that jumps out to me right away is that there's really only crew, maybe only 3, maybe 4 crew stations. So if you have a large party, you're going to have to include some fighters, or else someone's going to be bored. While you're doing all this.
And when it comes to the player ship options, it feels very small, and I'm not entirely sure why it's limited to just freighters and starfighters, especially when you have a lot more than that with the NPC ships, even if it's only by 5 instead of 4.
I think a large part of it is generally a small party of adventurers will only have access usually to only small ships to get around, not like anything much larger that they would be able to crew and pilot at the very least.
Hmm.
Unless that you want to add a bunch of NPCs who are
Mm.
like taking commands, I suppose. But
I feel like that's something that should be under consideration, especially if you're doing a space opera. The possibility of somebody getting access to a large ship. Oh,
Through legal means or otherwise.
yeah. I mean, yeah, ships like the Bebop or the Firefly are just jumped up freighters. Obviously, the Bebop was a fishing ship. Uh, but there's but consider how but as a counter to that, I will bring up one ship in particular, the SDF-1.
I, true. True.
I know one might say, yeah, but that's Macross, not Phantasy Star.
Or
If
the
you,
White Lion.
Mhm. There is nothing state that what who's to say that a party couldn't get access to or be gifted or steal a much larger ship. Um, consider how big some of the airships have been in Final Fantasy over the years.
Which
sure,
did tend to
Ragnarok
house
was
more
certainly
than five
large.
people.
Yeah, Ragnarok was a big ass ship,
Yeah.
and things like
The garden itself was a ship,
yeah,
technically.
also the Celsius. The Celsius is more like a carrier than a typical airship.
There's also the Final Fantasy VI airships.
Hmm. So this idea of it's got to be a fighter or a freighter, it's not sitting with me, especially when you have NPC stats for a bomber. If you're going to limit it to that few, at least give me some alternate um, builds.
Right? Ah, I know. It's gonna be DLC later.
Yeah, much.
Yeah, it's almost like if you want to have this in here, why not give us some more options, you know? It's potentially a fun system, and like okay, I'm the Sky Pirate guy. I'm writing an airship combat system for my game. I've got a lot of thoughts about it. I'll spare you for the time being,
Mhm.
but it's not going to be um a what like three pages of ships. It's got to be more, or at least give you the ability to easily build ships. Um,
Indeed.
yeah.
And if the argument is they didn't have enough space, or they ran out of room, I would be perfectly fine with just um not having ship combat and have that in its own book where it's gonna have room to
Exactly.
breathe.
Yeah.
Like in this book itself, considering what it is, I would have been perfectly happy having them list ships as a means of getting around in terms of like NPC ferrying kind of deal,
Hmm.
as opposed to just utilizing them for by having everyone in the party pilot it and fly off to who knows where.
If you're
And
gonna have
even
this
that,
system, it needs to
that's
be robust.
Hmm.
hmm. And even that's kind of scary in a way. Like when you give your players the freedom of like getting off the bloody planet to go who knows where else, there's no way of knowing where they're gonna take it or what they're gonna do. So I hope you're prepared for that entire can of worms.
Hmm.
Because at least if it's limited to like an airship or some kind of seafaring vessel, like there's a lot of things that can get in their way or that you can do to kind of like help guide things. But space is big.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And unless you're stopping by at some kind of like the occasional refueling station or an asteroid milkshake place, like there's what do you got? Players aren't gonna remember how much fuel they have.
Mhm. Yeah. So then we get to the game master's tools. The first thing that they do is the first thing you go into is building encounters, uh, which can be modified by changes in elevation, defensive positions, hazards, mixed monster groups, and reasons to move. Which that's more of an advice thing. When it comes to encounter difficulty, first off, they have choosing a difficulty. Uh, Low difficulty should be creatures whose level should be a party of 4 characters whose level equals the monster's CR. Moderate with moderate don't get they don't give a CR range, and with high difficulty they don't either. Then your XP budget, using the XP budget per character table, cross-reference the party's level with the encounter difficulty. I feel like this approach to doing XP budget is they're trying to do something that was done in both 4th edition and in Draw Steel, but here it doesn't make any sense. Much like it didn't make sense to do this kind of thing in 5th edition either. And I think this is as good a time as any to revisit why I don't like CR. It operates on far too many assumptions. Challenge rating, by its very nature, is assuming a balanced party of 4. Even if one might say that the party at their table has that balanced party of 4, from a design perspective, that's not an assumption you should be making.
True.
And what exactly indicates what's balanced? A lot of parties and a lot of encounters and shit like that is just going to revolve around less what's on what the characters have access to and more how twisted and psychotic your players are.
Not to mention
I want to cast create water into someone's lungs. Haha.
There's also the fact that by having set CR, and this was something I tried to avoid personally, you end up with a bottlenecked use of your bestiary, where you're looking for monsters to put in, not because it fits the encounter that you're building, but for an equivalent challenge.
Mm.
So you might have a bunch of monsters that would certainly fit the environment and fit the kind of campaign you're doing or adventure you're doing, but they're too low or too high CR, so you can't do it.
Yep.
And if the argument is going to be, well, encounters shouldn't have to be balanced, you can't play both sides with that.
Mm-hmm.
And they have a similar setup with Starship Combat, as well as awarding Starship Combat XP based on party level. A lot of this, if I'm being honest, I usually end up skipping because I will, more often than not, do milestones.
Yeah, agreed. And like in any leveling system should be using, well, almost it's difficult to argue that almost most systems that I would like bother to play that have some kind of robust advancement system going with milestones.
Mm-hmm. Pretty much. Now,
I mean, you got the outliers like Call of Cthulhu, which are help you based on how often you use your skills, but those are kind of on the outside.
yeah, the whole learn by doing thing. I've seen a few others. I know Augusta Universalis does that as well.
Yeah.
But then we have improvised damage. We have potential treasure caches based on CR. Honestly, I think this should be based on player level range than CR, especially if we're drawing upon Phantasy Star Online.
Mm-hmm.
Improvised damage as well as damage severity based on character level. What would be setback? What would be deadly? Okay. Fear and stress. I think this is lifted straight from 5e. Then objects and damage. I don't like object hit points. I never have, because you end up with the fucking door situation.
Not the door.
I think we've all had a case where somebody wants to do the dramatic kick the door down and break into the place, but they don't do enough damage, so the door doesn't budge. Even if it's a wooden door and you're having your barbarian who's got strength 20 doing it, somehow the door will not budge.
I roll to hit the door and somehow miss.
Yeah. I have always hated that shit.
Hmm.
I'm perfectly fine with the idea of oh, you need to for more I think a more elegant and more dramatically appropriate way to do it is instead of doing like defense and hit points, just have a minimum strength required. If you're over that minimum strength, you can break down the door no problem. If not, then you have to do it as an attack. And
if you're over a certain amount, you knock the door off its hinges, and then you have to pay the place.
Yeah, or if the door's even like maybe the door isn't even locked or barred. In that particular case, I wouldn't even bother with it. Honestly, just let them kick it open.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you're kicking
the person
a
with the
pull
high
door.
strength doing it anyway. Sorry, you're kicking what?
The pull door.
Oh yeah, kicking the pull door. True.
I remember one of my players once wanted to do a stunt where he did a running drop kick onto the door, and then used the door as a surfboard as he broke in and started blasting. And I was told to use rules as written when it came to it. So I was like, all right, roll the attack. He ended up rolling a nat 20. So I'm like, you know what? Fuck it. You break the door. This goes off without a hitch. Because I thought when somebody's going with that kind of stunt, I feel like it would be a dick move to leave it up to RNGesus at that point. That's just gonna feel really deflating.
Yeah.
But and we have
at that point, let him have it.
Then we have a thing on traps. I think this whole thing, when it comes to traps, is lifted straight from 5e.
Even the laser turret?
Well,
yeah, it's probably just something else.
Yeah, the way traps are working mechanically, though I do appreciate that it is level scalable. That's nice, though. Given the fact we don't have a trap creation set up, the example traps are kind of small.
Mm-hmm.
1, 2, 3, 4 example traps. That's the kind of thing that leads to traps not being used as often.
People use traps?
I'd like to see players use improvised traps more in games as a way to represent some of the um, setup and follow through kind of trap items you see in certain games, like proximity mines and the like, or what I've stated as doing with claymore mines in certain shooters. For those who haven't heard the story, I would place them at the top of ladders. No,
Oh yeah.
just to be a dick. I always knew when somebody hit one of
Flashbacks to
them.
GoldenEye.
uh, or if I want to be if I wanted to really be evil in say Perfect Dark, I would put the laptop gun in hard to spot places, so someone turns a corner and then they get shot at. Sometimes I can be more evil than people think.
What? You never.
But when it comes to the environmental effects, a lot of them are what I would expect. Uh, Although a pox on your damn house if you end up putting ice physics in your campaign. But then we have outer space travel, which first involves creating a galactic map, dealing with the measurements of it. You can adapt the video game versions of it. You also have travel speeds for space travel. So these scales are local area, system, sector, galactic region, and galaxy. With the travel pace along with it. And we also have this I will say is nice, is having a star system generator. Even if it is a bunch of dice rolls, it's always nice to have that if people want to make their own star systems. And then we have the possibility of generating the planets for each of them. But beyond that is the lore setup, which is mostly going into the timeline of the original quartet, as well as some of the side materials. But there is one sidebar that I want to highlight that I think is a nice touch. Quote, "The timelines presented in this chapter are pieced together from multiple sources, some of which contain minor conflicts of information due to creator and development changes over the years. It is important to note that although certain elements and dates were chosen or interpreted over the years, all relevant events remain consistent. Some official sources remain that were unavailable due to time constraints or their rarity. A list of official resources used in the creation of this book is included in Appendix B." Basically, this is their acknowledgement of some things are not going to add up.
Sure.
Which is going to happen when you have multiple writers working on a project over years. You're going to have some parts of a timeline that contradict each other. I mentioned BattleTech earlier. That certainly has that issue. There are some materials in certain books that are more apocryphal than others.
Mm-hmm.
And some stories that may or not have even happened. They may have just been tall tales told by somebody who took way too much Canopus battle powder out in the periphery. You know, things like the Black Marauder, if you're familiar with that story.
Hmm.
The Black Marauder I could best describe as a cursed mech. Because everybody who ends up piloting it ends up dying horribly in some form, even by BattleTech standards.
Oh, I know what I'm piloting next. No.
The reason people get lured to it is because it's a marauder. and
Fair enough.
later on in the centuries, that kind of tech is really, really hard to find. It's like why it's a big deal whenever a Star League cache is found somewhere in the galaxy, because, well, nobody knows how to make that stuff anymore.
Yeah.
And of course, if anyone tries, a certain group in white will try and have them shot. But I will note that this is a nice summary of a lot of the events of the 4 games. It does get a little bit. I'm glad they used those 4, because trying to fit online into the timeline is tricky. Instead, they just go with it being its own timeline, and we do have a little spreadsheet that goes over different characters in the series and how they might fit some parts of the mechanics here, which is nice.
Mhm.
I think it could do a little bit more than just a spreadsheet, but that's just me. Then some advice on adapting existing lore, as well as creating and linking adventures. And okay, I don't know why this wasn't in equipment, but you have the idea of legacy armaments. Special armaments passed down from generations. These improve with the user over time, reflecting their level of specialization. And we have the
Did they
legacy.
have any kind of like special weapon, like artifact weapons, for lack of a better term? I don't think they did in the equipment section.
No. They did not.
The latter place, then.
Mm-hmm. Then we have the history of the series going all the way through Phantasy Star Zero, and summarizing the storyline. And they do acknowledge that other entries like Phantasy Star Universe and Saga fall outside of the scope of this game. They may revisit that in the future. And then I already referenced this early on in the series, but the list of their sources and references, which is a very robust list. And then finally an index, and the character sheet proper. Which I do think, as well as a sheet for ships, and that pretty much is everything that Phantasy Star tabletop role playing has to offer. So, before I get into my thoughts on it, I'll go down with you guys as far as what you thought overall of the system, because I'll have something to say specifically on it using the D20 system after you guys go. So, Joe, what did you think of Phantasy Star tabletop role playing as a whole?
As a whole, this shows a labor of love and fan boyishness, for lack of a better term.
Enthusiasm.
Enthusiasm for the IP that I can appreciate. It also shows that they were doing their best to translate it to a tabletop with what they knew. So that I can't fault them on. The unfortunate part is they fell back a little too hard on the 5e scale. Especially with concentration. I'm breathing. I'm okay. like you mentioned it before with the combos, but like with the techniques in particular, how they do the concentration, the materials, adding spells that don't need to be there, where they could have totally done their own thing, but decided, you know what, I really like this particular roleplay flair for these particular spells from D&D, so I'm gonna add them here. It's basically like futuristic D&D, right? Let's do it. No, don't, please. But keeping to like the naming conventions of like weapons, items, keeping various elements, going the extra mile for the races, I like. I do like. But overall, I think it just balances itself out to be rather average in the end.
Mhm.
And that's me being kind.
Yep. Sizer, what did you think overall of what we've got?
Well, I was hoping for something that I hadn't seen before, and that is not really what I got here. Um, as previously established, I've not played the original Quartet or Phantasy Star Online, but I really question if you were looking to play Phantasy Star, would this really make you feel like you were working off of either one of the like two timelines we've got, the Quartet timeline or the Phantasy Star Online timeline? My guess is no. I'm not the right person to make that determination. But I coined a term I kind of like now, which is that it makes the logical fallacy of reductio ad D&D. Okay, reduction
Mhm.
to Dungeons and Dragons, where you are. It's just made things. It's just took Fantasy Star and D&Dified it, and that that certainly frustrated what I was looking for from it. I was looking to be like, oh man, now I want to go back and play those games now. They were just so interesting and unique, and this system doesn't do that for me. It did not do that for me. Um, I don't know. I was hoping for uniqueness, and I got samesies.
So, for me, I want to make one thing very, very clear.
Mhm.
Them using 5e's system is not the problem. Let me state that again. Them using 5e as their base is not the problem. There are plenty of games that I have covered that use 5e as a base that I don't have this issue with. I have covered Ultramodern 5. It doesn't have this issue. I've covered Magi Knight's Awakening. It doesn't have this issue. I've covered Dark Energy. It doesn't have this issue. I've covered Naruto 5e. It doesn't have this issue. You know what all those games have in common though?
What?
Instead of trying to take the totality of the 5e rule set and reskin it or reflavor it for Phantasy Star, they take the skeleton and build it around what they're trying to make. I mentioned
Mhm.
Magi Knight's Awakening earlier. That has the skeleton of elements of D&D 5e. But everything around it is expressly built around its particular brand of Maho Shoujo, Super Sentai, and just 90s culture. Ultramodern is built with a more modern approach instead of the fantasy approach, and does not use the same class setup, the same ability setup, or so on. It uses a ladder system. Same thing goes with Everyday Heroes, which is trying to be the 5e version of D20 Modern, but makes very significant changes to how a lot of the mechanics work, especially the way classes work, to kind of replicate the basic and advanced classes in D20 Modern back in the day.
Mhm.
And Dark Energy has the core there, but is doing its own thing with everything else. I realize I'm beating a dead horse when it comes to this sort of thing. The point with this is that my issue with how Phantasy Star tabletop role playing is using the 5e variant of the D20 system is that they are far too slavish. I made a straight comment on Twitter a while back comparing Phantasy Star tabletop role playing to Star Wars D20.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm not saying that because both of them are space opera science fantasy RPGs. That plays a part, but not entirely. No, the bigger problem is Star Wars D20 got hounded critically and only lasted a couple years. And no, I see what Ferb says in the chat. No worries, Ferb. Get some rest, man. But Phantasy Star D20 was trying to take a lot of the races, classes, and just racial abilities, class abilities, and the like, and try and straight up reflavor them into being Star Wars instead of building abilities and the like that had more of a Star Wars feel. This is why Star Wars D20 is maligned and Star Wars Saga Edition is beloved. Saga Edition is fucking great. It's the it is right up there with D6 in terms of the best that you can do with Star Wars and TTRPGs. Now, when it comes to, and the big reason for that is if you go back and look at it, it is doing a lot of mechanics that aren't in the 3rd edition D20 system. The escalating damage penalty to help speed up certain types of combat. The whole talent tree system with all of the classes and prestige classes. The fact that it introduced the idea of defenses instead of saving throws. None of those things were done with D&D 3rd edition, but they very much are done with Saga edition. Some of those things would transfer over into D&D 4th edition, like the saving throw defenses that I mentioned earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Because the central idea I'm trying to get at is that what should have been done if they were trying to do Phantasy Star in TTRPG form, using their variant of the D20 system in Esper Genesis, although the way they have skill points here isn't how they have it in Esper Genesis, but that's neither here nor there. What they should have done is take the D20 system in 5e, strip out everything but the spine, and build it around Phantasy Star. And I know that kind of thing can work. And where I stand on that is when I've seen people assess Legend Edition, one recurring thing I've seen people say, and I'm not bringing this up as a means of tooting my own horn. I want to make that clear.
Okay.
Is how much it gets the feel of Final Fantasy. And Sizer, you've skimmed through the book, and I don't know if you have, Joe, but that was one of the things that we were trying to get down pat first and foremost. Because we acknowledge that within certain D20 systems, for example, there are things within the games that just aren't going to be compatible. So instead, the idea is get the feel right, and the rest will naturally take care of itself. And the reason I pointed out all those other D20 based entries is I wanted to make clear using 5e isn't the problem, it's how.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're going to if they had called this just a 5e campaign setting, I don't think I'd be raising this much of a fuss. But when you refer to it as Fantasy Star tabletop role playing, and it amounts to a slight variation in all but name of that system, that is going to feel a bit deflating.
Just a bit.
So,
Hmm.
however, on the other hand, I acknowledge that they got some phenomenal artists to work on the thing. They
Mhm.
they went into
Definitely.
quite a bit of detail. There,
They did.
but if I can't bring up the D20 thing, I'll also bring up the fact that when it came to certain parts of equipment and the like, there was not enough space for what they should have done. Like you saw the weapon list just as much as I did. That was kind of small.
Mhm.
And I didn't see the point of having variants of those weapons when they could have just had a different stat block line.
Yeah. Also, the mastery versus like the specialities between each rank of weapon makes absolutely no sense to me.
I'm guessing you're referring to the separation between mastery and the grade bonus.
Yes.
Yeah, that
Because there's no reason to separate them. They should be part and parcel of the same thing. Because a lot of those masteries feel very underwhelming taken by themselves. And a lot of the specialities of the different weapons, it's not like those are transferable.
mm-hmm.
So they should also be worked in under the masteries in order to make them a little more flavorful.
Yeah, I think that mastery setup is their answer to the idea of having the equivalent of magic items, but the equipment in of itself was kind of small. Now,
Yeah.
like I said, it's clear that the developers are fans, but I think that they have, as much as some people got offended for me using the term, I think they have a bit of D20 brain rot, where they're thinking, as you mentioned, Sizer, that we need to be doing things adjacent to D&D as a whole, and I'm like, no, you don't.
Nope.
If they had taken the approach that, say, Ultra Modern or Everyday Heroes did with their mechanics, I think they would have gotten just as much of a splash on the strength of the IP alone. There would be a bunch of people who
Hmm.
haven't touched the TTRPG who would have touched this because they're fans of Phantasy Star. And I feel they deserve a better game. But if I were to put Phantasy Star tabletop role playing within my grading metric, which is more of a tier-based system than a numeric thing. I haven't done numeric-based grading in the better part of 10 years. I would say that this gets a stamp of playable. You're certainly gonna have to do some house ruling on certain aspects if you want to get a more rewarding feel. Because I had mentioned throughout this that there were several things I'd probably end up house ruling. However, when it comes to if you already lean into 5e, I don't think there's going to be enough here that's different than what you're already doing. At most, you'd end up taking like the fate point thing and just integrating it into your own campaigns as is. So we kind of have this no man's land problem. But I will note there is the issue of a lot of the Phantasy Star TTRPGs tend to skew more towards online, including the 24-hour project Ragdoll's Curse, which, to be quite honest, that is a better game. That is a better Phantasy Star game than this. That was made a decade ago as part of a 24-hour challenge. And let me see if And just to illustrate it, because it is available on PSO World, and it's also available on 1KM 1KT. I'm going to link the latter in the chat. This is available for free. I know some people like to say, "Oh, it's so hard to get into new TTRPGs." I'm like, there are plenty of free games out there, so don't give me the whole, "Oh, it's too expensive." I will hear none of that. And for you guys in the side chat, I'm just going to link it direct. I'm just going to put the thing directly in as an attachment because it's small enough for me to get away with that. Because this was made all the way back in 2006, and it's somehow a better Phantasy Star game than what we've been going through the last few weeks. Trying to figure that shit out.
Is this original art?
A lot of the art I think is taken from online.
Yeah, that's what it looks like.
It was largely based on PSO Blue Burst.
Yeah, kind of browsing it now.
Mm-hmm. I'm not sure what it says when you're getting pantsed by a game that was made almost 20 years ago for free in one day. I will also note that as I said at the top of the stream, there's also Tim Gonzalez's project, Photon System Overdrive, on the horizon. And I don't think it's arrogance on my part to say that that game is going to end up better.
Very well could. I can't really I've not seen Beacon, so I can't comment, but I'll take your word for it.
Well, if you want a preview of it, the Player's Handbook version of Beacon is free.
Okay.
All that it is just the player-facing part of the core book. I know Numenera did a similar thing where they had the player-facing stuff in a optional book.
And, yep, I have that book. I think, yeah.
But now, with that said, that is going to wrap up this particular season, and I will freely state that I don't like how harsh I was on Phantasy Star TTRPG here, but I gotta call it as I gotta see it.
I didn't expect the 5e bits walking in, and like you said, it's not necessarily bad that they did it the way that they did, though again, the favoritism between the subclasses and the way that they handled the techniques, all of which didn't really help things a lot.
Mm-hmm.
No.
But overall, I do like it. It's just not as good as it feels like it could have been.
The highs are not high enough.
Yeah. Exactly.
Oddly enough, I said the same thing about Need for Speed Carbon a long time ago.
Yeah.
Which was
about what?
Need for Speed Carbon, which was the follow-up to Most Wanted, and introduced some interesting mechanics, but those mechanics didn't have enough staying power in the game to really have an impact. things like the toge racing, for example. Even though they don't call it that, that's basically what it is. And you only get less than a dozen opportunities to use that in the campaign. So it doesn't feel nearly as impactful as, say, the police chases did in Most Wanted, which were a big pillar of its design.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of what I mean when I say the highs aren't high enough. There's a few.
Fair enough.
Now, looking towards the future, next week will be a one-shot week. Obviously, we'll be looking at Ronin and Full Metal President, unless I have to do some last-minute change again. Speaking of last-minute changes, the original plan was that going into January, for both Thursday and Friday, I would be focusing more on Japanese tabletop, which I still intend to do. However, the subject matter has somewhat shifted. So after we do the one shot, on January 1st, on New Year's Day, because everything's going to be closed on New Year's Day, so there's going to be plenty of time to do shit. We will be delving into Oka Hoshin, or Apotheosis of Oka, as I originally knew it as. This will be the first time I've done a full Valley of the Judge deep dive on a group SNE project. I want to give my sincere thanks to Awkward for translating the thing, even though Chinese terms are not his forte. And we'll be diving into that for the Valley of the Judged as our next full season. Obviously we're using a fan translation, and as usual, I will provide the fan translation personally. I'm not saying we're going to go through, but we're going to go through the Players and GM's guide, because let's be honest, I usually skim over a lot of stuff in GM's guides in this series, as I did tonight. But that is going to be the first Tiansha TTRPG that I have covered on this channel and in this series. I've covered plenty of wuxia games, even if some people bitch at me about my pronunciation of Chinese. Which anyone who's mad at me about my pronunciation, leave a comment, but leave it in Mandarin.
Or Cantonese.
Mm-hmm. But when we come back next week, it'll be the one shot. The plan is for Ronin and Full Metal President, the latter of which is one giant tribute to Metal Wolf Chaos, if any of you have played that. It is the second game that I have that does that. The other one was, and I swear this is the actual name, and it's this kind of way on purpose, Take Back of Freedom.
Fair.
And if you're thinking, wait, are they trying to take the piss with English? Yes.
Yes.
That is exactly what they're doing. I only wish the whole game was written in English, but that would be a nightmare to run.
Yes, it would.
But look, we recently had a shitpost game be dropped by Mongoose for free. That is, what if you combine Traveler and Paranoia?
Must we?
Apparently, Mongoose felt we should. And as I pointed out in the Discord a few years back, as an April Fool's joke, Catalyst did something similar, combining BattleTech and Shadowrun.
Shadowrun or Shadowtech?
I don't remember. It was years ago. But
which sounds better though.
Yeah. I think White Wolf
Shadowtech.
I think White Wolf did a similar thing with combining World of Darkness and Exalted, which honestly sounds awesome.
I mean, it's all essentially the same.
Goth Exalted.
Exalted of the Apocalypse. Exalted the masquerade.
Yeah.
Exalted the reckoning.
I will only agree with them being with these similarities if we're
Oh,
dealing with mage.
I got it. Edge exalted.
You're not wrong.
To quote the Big Lebowski, you're not wrong, you're just an asshole.
Don't say that about Sizer.
Ah.
We're all assholes, we know it. We're all GMs. Assholishness is inevitable.
Well, yes, but we do it for fun. Or
Mhm,
someone's
mhm.
enjoyment. I don't know whose.
Yeah. Sometimes that enjoyment amounts to, we have such sights to show you. But with that said, we will catch you next week. I will be back here tomorrow for a look at the Path of Aramthir.
Hold up. I should say next week is Christmas, so
Next week is Christmas Day.
Christmas Day.
So I know most of the actual stuff that happens around Christmas happens on Christmas Eve. So there's that. Worst case scenario, if we're all doing stuff on Christmas Day, then I'll just bump it by a week.
You might need to bump it by a week, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm. So
Though the week after is New Year's.
is New Year's
So
Day.
hopefully no one's hungover.
New Year's Day. I can do New Year's Day.
If anyone's still hungover by 8 o'clock on New Year's Day, lightweight.
Or binging.
Yeah,
Or
day
just-
drinking, just keeping the party going.
So the coping mechanism for every Cleveland Browns fan I've ever met.
There are
And-
Browns fans.
Yeah,
I guess there must be.
yeah, they're called masochists. Then again, I suppose the real drinking is over in Dallas with Cowboys fans. Good. But with that said, as always, thanks to everyone who took the time out of their schedule to come onto the show and enjoy the madness. And there will be plenty more where that came from, as there always is here, on the open bar of the internet. But until then, on behalf of the good brothers present and not present, my name is Mildra. I am your gaming monk. Stay fucking frosty, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.
내 조 신기